Hello everyone and welcome to AEW Discussion. I'm your host and AEW enthusiast, Doug. In today's episode I'm going to be discussing Dynamite, February 22nd, 2023 episode. So AEW continues on the road to Revolution, which is coming up on March 5th, so we're not that far off from it. On this episode of Dynamite, I think the biggest match on the screen, the two biggest matches on this card were the All-Atlantic Championship match between Orange Cassidy and Wheeler Yuta, and John Moxley taking on Evil Uno. With that, we'll go ahead and get right into the action, starting with the All-Atlantic Championship match, Orange Cassidy versus Wheeler Yuta. So, as big a takeaway as the quality of the match was, the appearance of Claudio Castagnoli as a pissed-off mentor was just as significant. First, he slapped Yuta to fire him up, then he called the unsuccessful challenger out of the ring, ruining what could have been a sign of respect hug. I actually don't know if that would have happened even if Castagnoli was out there, but nonetheless, he certainly took the heat for that one not happening. Now, could there be trouble in the Blackpool Combat Club? Possibly. I'm not really wanting to read too much into this. This is a club this is a group that has certainly come across as, very serious in nature. They're not about fun and games. They're just, business. So when you lose, it doesn't really get perceived very well. Yuta also, if I remember correctly, he got booed out of the building at one point, and Castagnoli looked to be anything pleased by the loss. So, maybe there's something to this. Maybe the group is fully committing to a bad guy turn. Maybe. Seems unlikely though. I mean, maybe Yuta and Castagnoli could pull off the bad guy turn, but Moxley still has some popularity with them. So does Bryan Danielson. I don't know if you can fully commit to that. Might as well just kind of leave them as tweeners, leave them in between. Even if that means half of the group is playing one side, the other half is playing a different side. I think there's a way to make that work. Ricky Starks and Chris Jericho set up a Revolution rematch. So overall, this was a solid promo segment, if not somewhat predictable the moment Jericho stepped through the curtain. Granted, I don't understand why Peter Avalon had to take a Judas effect. I mean, that guy's never on TV anyway, and one time he does pop up on TV. That's what happens to him. That seemed a bit unnecessary too, but nonetheless, it is official, and hopefully that match doesn't end the way so many of these typically do, and that being that Jericho beats a guy that he probably shouldn't at this point in his career. Not saying Jericho has to be one of those vets that loses every single match, but when you have a guy that's as hot as Starks, AEW needs to capitalize on that rather than Jericho avenging his loss. So yes, Starks winning would mean that Jericho loses 2 times in a row, but so be it. That's just kind of understanding momentum and understanding how bad a loss would be for Starks, whereas for Jericho, he loses, oh well, he has the credibility to where he can bounce back, whereas Starks is still establishing himself and everything else, and he needs that win more. And then you had the latest between MJF and Bryan Danielson, and once again MJF was great in this segment, speaking with conviction, even if trying to make a correlation between the girlfriend that left him and losing the AEW World Championship. Not exactly the greatest correlation, bit of a stretch right there. Granted, I think he was confident enough to sell it and make it work, but you think about it, doesn't quite match up very well. Nonetheless, it's not about that. 10 days, and we are just 10 days away before they clash in an Iron Man match at Revolution. Granted, this video will be up on Thursday afternoon, so it'll actually be 9 days away. Nonetheless, Danielson and MJF intensify their rivalry. It is now personal as they gave the blows in the segment that popped the crowd and had them ready to see champion and challenger throw down right now. Forget Revolution, let's do the match now. Overall, great stuff, and that match is fixing to be an early match of the year candidate. So once again, more great personal stuff too, and also nice to see MJF kind of just step in the ring and mix it up. Normally he kind of runs away from those fights, and sometimes it's okay, but I think also it's okay to let him go in the ring and throw down too. He's the world champion, so maybe let's not have him run away all the time. Maybe let's show that fighting side of him as well. And then you have John Moxley versus Evil Uno to close out the match. And honestly, I debated on whether or not I wanted to talk about this one, but we'll go ahead and talk about it. And I think the main reason why I want to is because I want to talk about how there is such a thing as excess and too much of something being a bad thing, and that is becoming the case with blood on AEW television. Now, I'm not opposed to it overall. I think it can be a great addition to a story. If you have a matchup that's personal, if you have a matchup with some story to it, like MJF versus Bryan Danielson, that one's personal. I could see how blood might be a good addition to the match. I don't think it's necessary, but I can see how it would benefit. Moxley versus Page, that one's gotten a bit personal. That one's got some story to it. They're also competing in a Texas death match. So obviously, and it's Moxley, so there's going to be blood, but let's just say that wasn't Moxley's thing. Let's just say blood wasn't something AEW regularly used. It could work for that matchup. But speaking of Moxley though, when you have one guy that's doing it to the extent that he's doing it, it stops having the desired effect. Him bleeding in a close-up shot of him, which honestly I don't think we needed, but nonetheless we got it. As the show faded to black, probably overshadowed what he did to Uno and how badly the Masked Man of Dark Order got beaten down and left bloody in the ring. I mean, yeesh. Now, it also negated the effect of what Moxley did to his opponent instead, which is, again, leaving him in the pool of his own blood in the ring. Maybe that's a bit stretched, but I mean, you saw, if you were watching the match closely, you saw how ugly it got. So instead of focusing on, instead of having the focus center around Mox and what he did to one of Hangman Page's friends, if that's even what they still are at this point, hard to tell with Page and Dark Order, because there's just too much infighting between them, and it's kind of distracting, and it's kind of pointless. It doesn't seem like it's leading to anything, so it's also kind of pointless. Nonetheless, main point is that when it comes to blood, because you have a guy like Moxley overdoing it, it's just not effective anymore. Nor does it make a match anymore, did it? And then Hangman Page would make an appearance and make the save for Rebo, and the beatdown that followed was pretty good, even if it left Moxley bloody once again. The pay-per-view match between the two should be good, but the show really needs to kind of back off of blood and let it mean more when it does happen. So maybe make it a special occasion sort of thing, but don't make it in every show type thing. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode of AEW Discussion. If you enjoy this episode, be sure to hit that like button down below.